time, although we meet very oftenly
Yeah.
pre-COVID. I think my voice is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me share my screen slides.
Dr. Mittal, not your voice, even your face is very clear, man.
Okay, thank you.
Beautiful ambience.
So, good afternoon, dear friends, and I welcome you all to this very exciting, very informative annual conference, which the credit goes to Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, Dr. Pallavi, and the entire team of CardioDiabicon. And I convey my thanks to them for inviting me. So I would be discussing a link between NAFLD, diabetes, and CVD, which is quite common. It's a common soil hypothesis. And common basically risk factors which are present in all these three conditions. So NAFLD is so-called fatty liver in a layman term, and a lot of patients come to us. I got an ultrasound done incidentally for some pain abdomen, something else, and there's a fatty liver, and it's taken as a normal, a sign of obesity and maybe sign of prosperity, which is actually not there. So NAFLD should not be taken lightly, despite whether the patient is either having diabetes or not, or CVD. So it's a basically sign of insulin resistance and is strongly associated not only with diabetes, obesity, dyslipidemia, and such patients should always be screened for cardiovascular disease also. They may be having a subclinical or a silent cardiovascular disease. So that's one point which has to be highlighted. And NAFLD, general population around studies are there, 35 to 40% of general population, but almost 2/3 or 70% of people who are having type 2 diabetes or who are obese. So it's very, very common in present scenario, and not to be taken lightly. And it is emerging as now the most important cause for chronic liver disease, cirrhosis of liver. In past, we used to say alcohol is the most common cause. In present era, it is NAFLD. So it's basically obesity, insulin resistance, NAFLD, which is the most common cause for cirrhosis of liver, and ultimately hepatocellular carcinoma. And not only that, it is also an important risk factor for coronary artery disease. So these are a couple of things which are important to understand. And what I want to convey again and again, that NAFLD should never be taken lightly, and we should screen the patient for other cardiovascular disease, dyslipidemia, and say even diabetes. And other important point is that, straight away, once there is an NAFLD, at least weight reduction, calorie restriction, and intensive lifestyle modification should be advised. There are studies we can see, from India by Dr. Sanjay Kalra and in Diabetes Care 2018. So these studies have shown very clearly that almost, in this cohort of 924 patients, there were almost 60% patients were having NAFLD, and it is more common in northern states like in India than in western states. So like Punjab, Haryana, UP, and all this, this is more common. So maybe obesity is more common in northern states. The other important point is that in Diabetes Care, again, 296,439 individuals, and it is an observational study, and it was found that NAFLD is the greatest risk factor for incident diabetes, hazard ratio 2.2. So you can imagine, how severe and how important, almost 2.5 times the higher risk of having diabetes. So all these people should be screened for diabetes, for coronary artery disease, and other, features of dyslipidemia and hypertension, etc. Now, diagnosis is basically based on 4 criteria. One is hepatic steatosis on histology, which is not there in all the people, but yes, definitely, some patients we may need to do it. Then absence of alcohol consumption, as the name suggests, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So alcohol consumption in significant quantity should not be there. Then absence of other competing etiologies of hepatic steatosis, and then other coexisting causes of CLD, chronic liver disease. Now, this is an important point again, like NAFLD is not one entity, it is a spectrum of disease. It's like diabetes, there's a whole spectrum, right from, pre-diabetes to diabetes, and then, like insulin resistance, insulin deficiency. So similarly in NAFLD, the first stage, it's a multiple hit, theory. So first hit is that when patient is having extra calories, and patient is either overweight or obese, and is mainly, Indian, as we call, them as thin fat Indians, a BMI normal, but, there's a central obesity. And on ultrasound, you find a bright liver. That's what, is taken as a fatty liver, and other features of insulin resistance. So at this point of time, liver enzymes are normal. Then the second hit, if this, the calorie intake continues and patient has other, increase in insulin resistance due to other, increase in obesity and other, increase in insulin resistance because of other causes, then definitely, there is also an abnormal liver enzymes, SGOT and PT. And they may not be very high. They may be just borderline 50 or 55. So a small increase in liver enzyme should again be taken as an important sign or a lab diagnosis. Now, there can be other features of metabolic. Now, slowly as this problem continues, so patient would have diabetes, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. And ultimately, these are the people who would ultimately go into, say, non-alcoholic steatosis, hepatitis. This is an inflammatory condition. Then the cirrhosis. Cirrhosis means, so initially there is an inflammation followed by, an irreversible inflammation, that is NASH. So NAFLD going into NASH, going into cirrhosis. And the cirrhosis is basically onset of fibrosis, and where there is also, other features of, even clinical signs in the form of ascites, splenomegaly, then even thrombocytopenia. This is another important sign. A small or lower borderline platelet count is also an important feature of a chronic liver disease. So these are things to be understood. Now, this is the spectrum of hepatic pathology: steatosis, then steatohepatitis, and then frank cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma. Now we can see hepatic manifestations. NAFLD is basically, it's basically one of the component or manifestation of metabolic syndrome, where all other, features of insulin resistance are also there. Then ultimately there's involvement of cardiovascular system, endocrine system, and renal system. Obviously, it is just, as I told you, a common soil, and then gradual progression of all these, conditions, and ultimately there is complications in the form of macrovascular and microvascular complications. So there's a complex interaction in genetic and environment, like in we talk of diabetes. So same is true with even NAFLD, and there's an abnormal accumulation of fat in the hepatocytes, and the type of fat. So type of fat and quantity. So quantity and quality of fat in the liver decides about this, is the key driver for NAFLD. Initially, there's a simple steatosis, that is accumulation of fat, followed by inflammation, necrosis, ballooning, and fibrosis. Now, this is another important thing which we have to understand: a twin cycle hypothesis. So there are two cycles operating parallel. One is in the liver and other in the pancreas. So whenever there is a positive calorie balance, now almost every Indian, the lower middle class onwards, they have access to all kinds of junk foods and high calorie, dense, fat content is also high food. So everyone is almost having this. So there is an excess of calories, and that leads to increased accumulation of fat in the liver. So that's one point which you have to understand. So this is a liver cycle, and this leads to, liver, then, there is a release in accumulation of triglycerides in the liver, and like we can see here, accumulation of TG, and then there's increased VLDL in the blood. And this VLDL is taken by the pancreas. So there are two parallel cycles going on. One is liver and other is pancreas. So pancreas takes up this fat, and take my words, it's mentioned in the text that 1 gram of fat, just imagine, it's so small, 1 gram of fat accumulation inside the pancreas can damage pancreas to a large extent. So that's an important thing to understand. So when there is a huge amount of VLDL circulating and it is taken up by pancreas, so you can imagine, so there would be a kind of lipotoxicity which comes into play before glucotoxicity. And this lipotoxicity damages the pancreatic beta cells. And that leads to a decrease in acute insulin response. So liver cycle, pancreas cycle. So simultaneously, liver cycle is leading to increased fat in the blood, increased intake of this fat by different tissues, including the adipose tissue as well as the pancreas, and there is acute damage to beta cells. At the same time, liver also leads to insulin resistance in the liver, hyperinsulinemia, and that leads to increased plasma glucose levels. So plasma increase in the glucose levels is because of damage to beta cells as well as insulin resistance. So you can imagine it's a vicious cycle going on. And if we don't stop this positive calorie balance and intensive lifestyle modification, this ultimately goes into a big problem. And that is not only diabetes, then cardiovascular disease and other features. So there's a complex interplay between gut, adipose tissue, muscles, cardiovascular system, and liver. So it's a huge, and then it becomes a multiple. So what I always say, you either treat one to avoid many, means you treat overweight or obesity to begin with just one problem, or you avoid one to have many. That means you have many complications and avoid obesity and insulin resistance. So basically, overweight, obesity, insulin resistance is the important aspect. And once you treat this, you can avoid and make the life of patient, almost normal and very, very comfortable. Otherwise, patient can have anything, all possible complications. Now, key mechanisms for insulin resistance are, we can see basically, typical thin fat Indians. So, there is onset of diabetes a decade or two earlier, and onset of cardiovascular disease also, decrease in adiponectin level, which is the only, protective adipocytokine. Normally, adipocytokines are taken as inflammatory. Then there is also, decrease, interference with intracellular signaling of insulin receptor substrate, lipotoxicity, I've already told you. Then mitochondrial dysfunction also comes into play, dysfunction of adipose tissue. That means, basically hepatocytes not only increase in number, they increase in size. So increase in number of hepatocyte doesn't matter much, but increase in size of hepatocyte by accumulation of more fat is the one which creates problem, inflammation, and release of inflammatory cytokines. Then definitely there is, also impaired gut microbiota or gut dysbiosis, we call it, and release of these inflammatory cytokines. So multiple things start going on, and this is a physiology and other, aspect. But if we tell the patient that you reduce your weight and you have intensive lifestyle modification, everything would set right. Now, here we can again see, say, diabetes and NAFLD, and then cardiovascular disease on this side. So it's a kind of a triangle, which is, there's a vicious cycle, one leading to another one potentiating or precipitating the other one. So cutting short, only the calories and weight will reduce all three. So basically, diabetes itself alone will lead to micro and macrovascular complications. Then it can even increase NAFLD and vice versa. And then NAFLD can lead to chronic liver disease, cirrhosis, hepatocellular carcinoma, and both these problems can lead to cardiovascular disease. And ultimately, it's a complex, triad of diabetes, NAFLD, and cardiovascular disease. And why I am talking about cardiovascular, because 70 to 80% of diabetic patients die of cardiovascular disease. So cardiovascular, reduction in cardiovascular events and mortality is the most important aspect of treating diabetes and NAFLD and other insulin resistant states. Now here we can see that NAFLD and cardiovascular disease NAFLD is a significant independent risk factor. I've told you, let's see, it has been seen that CVD is a leading mortality, cause of mortality, we already know. And it is not only basically a coronary artery disease in NAFLD. It has been seen that patients with NAFLD also have increase in the incidence of cardiac arrhythmias versus people who have normal liver or non-NAFLD, and then increased hospitalization due to heart failure. So try to understand. So it is not only CAD, it is other cardiovascular diseases also. Then the meta-analysis has shown, 2016, that fatal and non-fatal, both cardiovascular events, they were 64% higher in patients with NAFLD than without NAFLD. Even CAD, we can see lower down, hazard ratio is almost 2.5, and these people have increased, calcium, coronary artery calcium score also. Then we can see here that there's a typical atherogenic lipid, profile, which almost all, say, obese, especially diabetic and NAFLD patients, have this, and this is increased TGs, low HDL, and increased high dense LDL. Then there is, a cardiac MRI study which was done in patients with NAFLD, and it showed there's impaired myocardial energy metabolism. So at the level of mitochondrium, also there is a problem going on, and that is leading to some features of even heart failure and cardiomyopathy. Now we can see potential pathophysiology mechanisms responsible for increased CVD, and we can see so many. Again, I will not be going into detail. The only thing is, the first thing is the insulin resistance, and then there's the endothelial dysfunction, altered lipid metabolism, systemic inflammation, and that leads to plaque instability, more fat content in the plaque, and vulnerability and rupture, and cardiovascular disease, etc. Now, this is again very important, and again a very good photographical representation of this NAFLD and NASH. But this is almost the same thing. This is gut. So there is an alteration in gut dysbiosis. We always talk about that. And now in coming times, take my words, gut microbiota and gut is going to take a big lead. So it is basically the lower part of the body controlling the upper part. I means the brain. So gut brain, so gut controlling brain. Now, so overall, so there is abnormality in the lipids, in pro-inflammatory, vasoactive, endothelial dysfunction, etc. Now, coming to atherosclerosis, there is an accelerated atherosclerosis in patients with NAFLD. So one is genetic, but then obviously insulin resistance plays an important role. Inflammation, inflammatory cytokines, oxidative stress, low adipocytokines, and procoagulant factors like PAI1, which is also high. And here we can see, triacylglycerol, which is the main product, which is which comes out of liver. And then there is, it leads to, low-grade inflammation, and ferritin also, glucose, PAI1, and ultimately there's endothelial dysfunction and, formation of plaque and, rupture of plaque. Then other cardiac complication, as I told you, the coronary heart is the first and the most important, but cardiac dysfunction, hypertrophy, heart failure, aortic valve sclerosis also has been seen more in patients with NAFLD than QT prolongation and atherosclerosis. So overall, overall, if we see the management part, as of today, take my words, there is no medication recommended for NAFLD, except in patients who are having NAFLD with diabetes or dyslipidemia or hypertension, then definitely. So patients who have diabetes and say NAFLD, definitely then we prefer metformin, pioglitazone, even DPP-4 inhibitors, SGLT2 inhibitors have shown, GLP-1 analogs have shown there's some benefit. And out of these, pioglitazone is the only one as of today, which has shown a reduction in fibrosis also. Now, if patient is having NAFLD with dyslipidemia, then role of statin is also there. If there is, basically hypertension, then treat hypertension. But if there's a, just simple NAFLD, nothing else, then reduction in weight, because generally these patients are overweight. So there's no kind of recommendation as of today of any medication. I'll be showing you some trials are going on like vitamin E and etc. But as of today, no recommendation except the lifestyle modifications. So these are number of agents like I've already mentioned: biguanides, thiazolidinediones, DPP-4, GLP-1, SGLT2, then antioxidant supplementation. Vitamin E is leading, but again we don't have a definite trial as of today. Fish oil, and then pentoxifylline, which is a non-selective PDE inhibitor, and then the most important one is obticholic acid. This is basically a farcenoid X receptor agonist, which is under trial, and it is it's an anti-fibrotic agent. So even if there's an onset of fibrosis, it may be may be made normal. So that's one thing which we have to understand. That there are trials going on, like even saraglitazar, a dual PPR gamma agonist. So there are trials going on to treat NAFLD. So there are liver protectants and antioxidants. So we have US ursodeoxycholic acid, which is very, I don't know, left, right, center, it is being written, but take my words, it has not proven to be effective. It decreases only enzymes, SGOT-PT, patient becomes happy, even physicians, they feel happy, but inflammation and other features of NAFLD progression is not really reduced. Then polyene phosphatidylcholine and N3, poly omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin E, C, polyphenol. So these are all under trial, and even vitamin E, as I told you. But the problem with vitamin E is that the dose has to be more than 800 units per day, and at least for 1 year. So at least 6 months to 2 years, and it is level 2 evidence. So what I want to say that there are some even adverse effects of giving vitamin E over a long period of time. So we have to strike a balance. So, but the recommendations are not there as of. So pioglitazone, as I told you, is the best agent anti-diabetic because it decreases, because it is the only insulin sensitizer available. Okay, as of today, there's no other. Metformin, it acts only on the liver, but this is pioglitazone on the peripheral tissues, muscles, and adipose tissue. And it also increases adiponectin levels, and it also decreases pro-inflammatory cytokines. So this is the only, if we see the differences in the different studies, placebo versus in steatosis, inflammation. So fibrosis, we can see there's a huge, percentage of patient improvement is highest with pioglitazone compared to other agents. So friends, this is my last slide, and take home message very clear that NAFLD is not to be taken lightly. It is very common, but commonly neglected also, both ways. So we should be little concerned on this, advise patients lifestyle modification. Yes, as we have, the previous talk, very elegant talk, like, we have to spend some time. The most important point. So if we can't spend, we have to have a team or an app, simple. So education is the most important pillar of diabetes management, and so is true for NAFLD. And definitely obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, other things should be ruled out and treated accordingly. And NAFLD is not only the most common cause for chronic liver disease, but is an independent risk factor for coronary artery disease, cardiac arrhythmias, cardiomyopathy, as well as hospitalization due to heart failure. And there's a very complex bidirectional link association between NAFLD, cardiometabolic features, diabetes, hypertension, etc. So weight reduction is the most important, calorie restriction. So first, I will always say calorie restriction for weight reduction. The second is appropriate proportion of macronutrients depending on patient's individual body. So two things are very important: calorie restriction and appropriate distribution of macronutrients. And then obviously pharmacotherapy is weight reduction, as I told you, but definitely if patient is having other underlying diseases like diabetes and other things, then definitely like thiazolidinediones, and we have seen even with GLP-1, DPP-4 and SGLT2 inhibitors. And then FXR, farnesenoid, X receptors agonists are under the trial. So which, so with this I conclude and I convey my thanks to all of you. Thank you very much.